and then I'll just go over as much as I can cover and as much as I can remember, really. Okay, good evening everyone. Once again, I'm Innocent and also a participant too, but I just want to share from my experience with you. So the first thing I want to talk about, for those that just joined, right, we've gone over a few things. The first is the Git and GitHub projects. So I would start writing one or two things on my screen so you can see it. Okay, yeah, we have some people trying to join now. So those joining us, you're welcome. We've not gone too far, we're just starting, so you're welcome. Right now, like I said, for those that are just joining us, we've gone over a few things that you need to learn, really, and I'll just go over those things. First and foremost, the environment you will be using throughout is Linux. Okay, so sorry. So we're using, the first thing is we're using Linux. Okay, so what is Linux? Linux is an operating system. Okay, just like what are other operating systems? Many of you are familiar with Windows, right? Some people may be familiar with a Mac. Okay, and we have Linux. Okay, so the first thing is, if you are familiar with Windows, you may not understand how to use Linux operating system because the interface is quite different. With Windows, you have the luxury of a GUI, okay, graphical user interface. That's what it means, graphical user interface. Okay, but and this graphical user interface on Windows is what allows you to click stuff. For example, if you want to open a folder or you want to create a folder on your desktop in Windows, very simple. All you just need to do is, I'm using a Windows machine now, all you need to do is right click, and then you, on your desktop now, just right click, go to new, click on folder, and you say tech, for instance. Okay, so this is a tech folder which I've created now on my machine. But on Linux, it's different. Okay, you will not have the luxury of a graphical user interface. So that is the essence of the the first set of tasks that you will be dealing with. Okay, to teach you how to navigate a shell. Okay, so you have something called a shell, right? And then you would have access to what we call as a terminal, right? So what you learn in the very first session of, for those just joining, I'm talking to you, what you learn in the very first set of tasks you would work with is how to navigate the Linux environment. Okay, for example, how to create a folder, how to create a file, how to edit files, and so on and so forth. Okay, now in Windows computer or Mac even, you would also have access to a text editor. Okay, a text editor. Example of a text editor is that comes with Windows. Okay, we have something called a notepad, right? This allows you to, text editor just means any software that allows you to edit text. Okay, now we have notepad. More advanced editors will include something like Visual Studio Code, right? VS Code. This is a lightweight editor, right? There is also something called Visual Studio here as well, and so on and so forth. Okay, now these text editors on Windows are what? They are GUI based. Okay, remember the meaning of GUI, graphical user interface. Whenever you hear this GUI word, if I'm too fast, just let me know and I'll go slowly. Okay, so whenever you hear this GUI word, just know you are referring to a user interface where you can click something. You see, some things are clickable. You have icons that are representing different things. That's what you are referring to as a GUI, graphical user interface. Now, for a Linux operating system, your editors are not GUI based, okay? Rather, they are text based editors. For example, see, you have something like VI, you have something like Vim, okay? And you have Vim means VI improved. You have something like Emacs, okay? Emacs, and so on and so forth. So now the way you interact with a GUI based editor is not the same way you interact with this text based editors, right? It's not the same way you interact with them. So subsequent tasks would teach you how to interact with this editor. Now the first thing, remember, the first thing is what? Linux system itself, navigating the system, creating files and all. Now the next thing you will now learn is the editor. So how do you edit files? Okay, you choose one of these, and you'll see me going over all these things while while teaching you or talking about the tasks at hand. Okay, then after you do this, then I think you go into Git, okay, Git and GitHub. Sorry, someone tried to join. Okay, then you go into Git and GitHub, okay, for those just joining. Then after Git and GitHub, I think you have shell, okay, so you have some shell permissions and all, you know, just some advanced work as regards this your shell operations, okay. And in our last section I talked extensively about this shell permission and all. The video is available, right? And I think I posted it on the Slack channel, but I'm still going to post it here so you can see what we talked about. Then after the shell permission and variables and all, then you now get to where we currently are, which is C programming, okay? Yeah, so this is where we're currently at now, C programming. So for those joining us, you will go through all this before you get to this stage, okay? So let me just quickly talk about C programming. Then as I'm talking about C programming, you will see me using a lot of the concepts learned here. You will see me using them in this C programming. So really what happens is the knowledge you gain at each step of your journey in this program, it's going to count towards your success in the next stage. That is the way I just see this thing. Okay, now what will I do? The next thing I'll do is I'm going to open up my ALX platform, my dashboard. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and connect to the sandbox. So you see how to connect to your sandbox really. So this is the sandbox. You can use the web terminal. If you use the web terminal, that means you would remain on your browser like this, okay? You remain on your browser. So this web terminal is Linux based, and it allows you to do some simple commands. What are those commands? For those that are new to the program, this is what I'm telling you about the Linux, navigating Linux really. So let's say we want to check the folders that we currently have here. We can use a command called ls. So immediately you type ls and hit enter, it will give you all the folders we have in this particular location. Now if I don't know where I am, okay, I can just do pwd, which means print working directory, and this is going to tell me where I am. Now if I want to change my directory, just as the name implies, I'm going to say cd, which means change directory. Let's say I want to go into my root folder like this. If I say folder, I still mean directory, okay? So if I cd, which means change directory into root, okay, this simply means go into root directory. That's what that cd means. And then if I go into that root directory, I can also do my pwd once again. You see now it says root, okay? Now the next thing I want to do is I want to check ls to see all the folders that are inside this root. But I will add one more command to this ls. I'm going to add -al, okay, and I will tell you the meaning of -al command. Okay, so when you add this argument with ls, it's going to just list, let me just rub this off, it's going to list all the files in this root directory in long format like this. Okay, so I'll click here and click enter, and you see what I mean. Now I covered these permissions right here. D means directory, RWX means read, write, execute. I've covered all these things in the previous video, so I'll not go into it right now. Okay, now, so this is how you work with your terminal on the web. That's why it's called web terminal, right? Now this same terminal I'm working with here, there is another way to connect to it. It's called SSH. Okay, so now this is so I'm back to my sandbox. Now it gives me the option of SSH, which you can see here. I can simply copy the SSH command. Now there is something called git bash. Okay, so I'll use the git bash to actually connect to the same web terminal. Okay, I'll show you, I'll talk about git and git bash as we progress. But when you install git, git comes with this git bash. Okay, it's also a terminal that you can use to connect via SSH. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is paste what I've just copied from that sandbox page. Okay, so how do I paste in git bash? On Windows, I'm currently using Windows. All I need to do is type shift and insert. You see, now I have what I just copied right there. Okay, so now I can easily hit enter like this, and it's going to ask me for password. One sec, someone is trying to join. Okay, now I don't see nobody joining. Okay, so it's going to ask me for my password. All I need to do is come back there and select my password. Okay, and copy my password. So I'll just go back and copy my password, and then I'll come back here and just paste my password. Now if I paste my password, you'll see nothing comes up, right? But I have pasted the password, and that is how it works by design. This is to protect you so that people don't view your password. Of course, the part where I have my password in this video, if I'm going to upload it, I'm going to remove that part. Okay, so now I'll hit enter, you see, and watch this. Now I'm connected via SSH. So the same web terminal you saw me working with, this is exactly the same thing I have here. So ls command gives me everything I have here, and then if I want to go into root, for example, I can say cd into root. Okay, and inside root I can check the files I have, and you see I have all these files. Now if I want to create a directory, very simple. All I need to say is mkdir and the name of that directory. So let's call this session. The name of the directory is called what? Session. Now if I do ls again and I do -al for list all the directories inside my root, you will see now I have a directory called what? Session. Okay, now if I want to go into session, I just need to do cd and say session like this, and then I'm now in session. If I want, this is becoming too clumsy and I want to clear it so that you can see exactly what I'm typing, all I need to do is type clear for clear and hit enter, and then you see everything is cleared, but I'm currently in session. How can I be reassured that I am actually in the session directory? I just do pwd, which means print working directory, hit enter, and it says yes, you are in this directory called root/session. Okay, so that's a confirmation that I am in session directory. Now one thing I was telling you is that you have what we call a graphical user interface on Windows. So there are GUI based text based editors on Windows. For example, I'm a huge fan of an editor called Visual Studio Code. I use that to code a lot, and I'll just show you what the editor is like. Okay, so if I go to my Windows and so how did I bring this out? I press the Windows and R key. Let me close this. So Windows R key would give me this, right? And then just type CMD, okay, and you hit enter. Okay, now this will open your command prompt. This command prompt you see here and this and your webcam, okay, they have a similarity, okay, in the sense that they are both terminals. This is command prompt for Windows, or CLI as it's also called, command line interface. That's what that means. And then you can actually navigate your Windows machine with this command prompt. Okay, so this command prompt can allow me to also create a directory on Windows. For example, I can cd into desktop right here. You see, now I'm in desktop. If I do dir, the commands are a little bit different. Okay, there are some nuances between the commands you use on your Windows command prompt and a Linux based terminal. Okay, there are some nuances to that, and you'll see some of them. If I'm on Linux, I'll do ls to list my directories. If I'm on Windows, I'll do dir. Now I'll just talk about some of the nuances we have, and then I'll now show you the graphical user interface tech based editor, right, that I love to use for almost all my programming, including C programming, right? So okay, I take that back, not for almost all, right? So there is another okay, 1 second, I will explain some things to you. But there's another editor I also love to use, because I do data science, I do data analytics as well. So that editor is called Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so let me show you VS Code first. The first thing I'll do is, okay, someone is trying to join, guys. Let me just admit that. Who knows, how do I admit everyone automatically into this thing? Does anybody know how to do that settings, so people don't keep distracting us when they're trying to join? If you know how to tweak this setting so that everyone who tries to join will be admitted automatically, just teach me how to do that in the chat, or unmute your mic and just say it. If you don't, I'll just continue. Okay, so oh, you see, now I'm thinking, where was I? Oh, I lost it. Sorry, who can call me back? Where was I? I was saying something before someone tried to join. Are we there? Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah,
okay, where was I? Sorry, someone tried to join and I just lost my train of thought.
You were at point of when you were talking about Jupyter.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so there's Jupyter Notebook that I love to use for data analytics, and there is also Visual Studio Code that I also love to use. So the Visual Studio Code thing is what I'll show you on my desktop. Now I am on, this is going away from Linux. Now I'm talking about Windows, right? Now on my desktop, I will make a directory called session as well. Now watch the directory on my desktop. It will appear now. So if I just do this and I hit enter, you see, watch this, like this. Okay, so 1 sec. Okay, now can you see, look at it, session. So immediately I used this command, it created this folder. I could have just did like this and say new folder and created the folder, but you can do all that on a terminal. So you need to understand what the use of this terminal is. It's just for you to navigate your system. Everything you can do on graphical user interface, a terminal allows you to do same. Okay, that is what this Linux terminal is also for, right? Now I've created a session folder on my desktop. I can go into that session folder like this, right? Now I'm in the session folder. I can use CLS. If I was on Linux, I would do clear, okay? But if you're on Windows, you use CLS to clear your screen, okay? To clear your command prompt, okay? Now I'm on session. Now what I would do is I'm going to create a folder. Now I'm actually jumping from one topic to another when you start working on the project. Okay, now the next thing you would encounter is this echo command. Okay, echo command works on Linux terminal as well as Windows command prompt. The echo command simply allows you to create a file. Okay, so for example, let's say I want to create a file, and the file is going to be a C programming language file. Okay, and your C programming language file, they always end with .c. That's the file extension. If I'm creating a Python file, for instance, it's going to end with .py. Okay, if I'm creating a if your file is a CSV file, that's comma separated value, it will end with .csv. Okay, for example, if you are working with Excel, Microsoft Excel, your file extension will be something .xls, something like that. I can't remember that right now. So I'm creating a file here. Okay, and that file is going to have basically just a line of comment, for instance. Okay, and that comment will be hash like this. No, let me do this comments / right, and this is how you write a comment. But don't worry, I'm just trying to show you something. Okay, this is a C program. Okay, and to end the comment, I need to do this like this. Sorry, not that, this. And then what is the name of the file? The name of the file will be hello.c. Okay, so I'll do hello.c, not .co, hello.c. Now this command is going to create a file called hello.c inside my session folder, right? I'll hit enter, and you see I have no errors. Now if I go into session if I look at the files in session folder by typing dir like this, now you see I have hello.c. Okay, now this hello.c, I can open it in Visual Studio Code by typing code dot. If you do all this, it may not work for you. Before you use code dot on your Windows machine, you need to have installed Visual Studio Code. I will run you through the installation process very soon. So if I just type code dot, now what happens is it opens that session folder in Visual Studio Code with my hello.c program which I've created. And you can see this is a C program, and this has nothing yet, but we have a comment. Okay, what is a comment in programming? A comment is a line of code that the interpreter or the compiler ignores. That line of code is meant for you and I, the human being. Okay, it's meant for us to understand what the person who wrote the code is trying to achieve. Okay, now this is a line of comment. This is one line, right? But normally the way you write a one line comment in C is like this. Okay, so this is a one line comment like this. Now there is also something called a multi-line comment, and how do you do that? You do star like this, and you hit enter. Now you see, when I'm using Visual Studio Code, right, it allows you to auto-complete some of these commands. So when I hit /* and I hit enter, it completes this command for me. So if you are working on the task, right, there are some requirements. First, you need to describe what is happening with your main. Okay, so oh, someone is trying to join again. Okay, let me admit. Sorry guys for those trying to, I just need to admit them. So okay, yeah, so welcome those just joining. So for your main now, right, you just need to say entry point, and I mean everything you put under this comment is up to you really, but I'm just following the specifications of the program. Okay, so main entry point, we have results, and your result is going to say always what? 0, right? And inside here you want to put success. Okay, another person trying to join. Okay, so this is a program and I'm using Visual Studio Code. Right now, what is there is this you see me doing right here is a requirement, okay, in this program. What do I mean by requirement? There is something called a Betty linter. If you don't do things this way, your Betty linter will tell you that you have not met requirement. You need your code needs to be structured in a certain format for those doing the C tax, okay. So now for C, okay, I'm just going to change this one line, this first single line comment. I'm going to change it to something, and that thing is going to be this, okay. I'll say include, don't worry, I'll explain all these things I'm using, and standard input output.h like this, and I'm good to go. So I'll tell you why you need this header file. Now what you are doing here, okay, this first line is called header file, okay. Now if you are writing a program in C, okay, all your program needs to go into a main function, okay. And how do you define a function in C? Very simple. So I'm going to say int, the name of the function, which is main, and inside the function you want to put the argument. I'm going to say void. Now note, if I don't add void, this program will work. But once again, the linter requirement, the Betty linter, would require you to add void, okay, for your program to pass. Okay, now the next thing is you need to open a code block, okay. And in C programming, you open and when you want to start a code block, you need to start with your curly brackets, opening curly brackets, and ending it with a closing curly brackets, okay, like this. So once you have this curly brackets, the rest of your code goes here. So you see, I'm going to use a comment to just say the rest of your code goes here. All right, now let us write our first simple C program. It's just going to print hello world to your console. What do I mean by console? I mean your terminal, okay. This program is going to print hello world to your terminal. So how do I do that? I'm going to say print f like this, and inside f I'll write what I want to print. So what do I want to print? I just want to print hello world, which is the first program, hello world program in C. Now when you finish writing a program in C, you have to end it with this semicolon, okay, to tell the compiler that this is the end of this particular line. Now one more thing you have to add is a return statement, and all you need to do is say return, and then you say 0 like this. Alright, so I'll save this program now. So we have written a C program. How do we now run this program in Visual Studio Code? Why is understanding this, the way we do it in Visual Studio Code, important? Because it will ease your work. You can easily write your code, test it, come back here and just copy this thing, and then you know that your code works, and then you can go back to your VI or VIM or Emacs editor, whatever you choose to, and I will practically show you how it's done really. Okay, so let us run this program. How you run the program in Visual Studio Code is, first you need to have installed Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio Code comes with extensions, okay. So you need to have installed the extensions that cater for C programming language. And what are those extensions? You will need a compiler, okay. So I have done all that, right, but I'll still show you how to do same. But when you want to run this program now, just click on run. I'm going to say run without debugging, okay. I'm just going to say run without debugging. And now this run without debugging, I'm telling you, I'll click on C++, I'll click on GCC like this, and then you see it's going to tell me issues. Okay, now I have one issue in this program, and you see it's already pointing out the issue. The issue is that I forgot to close that statement, and you see my program is already telling me, oh, you have some issues here, so ensure that you close the statement, okay. So I'll use this to close that, and I'll save it, and then now my program is fine, and I can now go back to run, and then I'll say run without, start without debugging, select my compiler like this, and you see done, executed. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, Now what do you do? The next thing you see that if I go back here now, you see I now have this hello.exe. That means this program has compiled successfully, and now I have hello.exe. Okay, now let me show you something. The next thing you do is go to your terminal, right? Your terminal is already opened, okay, but I have some things blocking my terminal here. SQL. Okay, so I've closed that. So this is my terminal. Okay, now when I say terminal, what I mean is this same CMD, this CMD I have here, it's what this Visual Studio Code has given me under here. So I don't need to always go back to my CMD. I can work from here. Okay, now the terminal is currently on my session. Let me prove to you that it's actually a terminal. You can put dir like this and the command will work. You can do cls like this and it's going to clear. Okay, now how do you run your program? Your program has compiled to hello.exe. All you need to do is just say what? Hello.exe, and the output of that program like this will be shown here. Can you see that? Okay, let me back off a little and wait for you to ask questions. Any questions so far? Questions? If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me. Yeah, questions. If you know you are too shy to speak, you can use the chat window or something. Chat window, the chat box. Just type your question, I will read it and I will answer you. Okay, if there are no questions, everybody in the chat box just type continue.
Sorry, I want to ask a question.
All right.
Okay, like in one code, the one source code that we copied, I saw like two different types of headers, standard library and time.h.
Yes.
I don't really understand what it means.
Okay, let me explain to you what the header file means really. Okay, now in your C program, right, you are going to be working with functions. For example, you see this printf, the printf function is located in this header file, right? It's located in this header file. I will explain to you what that means. See, for this print function you see here to work, it must reference this header file, this standard input output.h header file. Okay, must be included. If you don't include this, your program is not going to know what you are talking about when you say printf. The only way your program knows what you are talking about when you say printf is because it is seeing this function inside this header file. Do you understand now? So the same way, there are some other functions that you will need. For those functions to work, you have to include the header file for those functions to work. Okay, and I think one of the tags reference, there is a particular tag to this regard whereby you need to include one more header file for the functions to actually work. So you look at the function. See, this thing is very simple. If you look at a function and it's not working, you just search for the header file that is associated with that function. Do you get me now? For example, listen, let me show you a simple search now. You see, now I want to search look, what C header file is used for printf. You see, just like this, something like this. Can you see? Standard input output.h. So I can, instead of printf now, I can say what C header file is used for time, for instance. You see, time.h. So for me to use this time function in my C, I need to say include time.h. If I don't include time.h, it is not going to work. What C header file, for example, is used for srand. Look, srand. You see, now this is the header file. Can you see it? You see that? You can click and go into the program itself, and you will just see the header file used. So in this thing, you cannot know everything of it. So this is the header file, cstdlib, right? So for me to use this srand function, I need to include this header file. If I don't include this header file, srand function is not going to work. If I don't include time.h, time function is not going to work. Do we understand? Is that clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Any other question, or should I just continue? If you want me to continue, just type continue in the chat so I will know you want me to continue. If you want me to continue, everyone type continue in the chat.
Okay, so can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm not seeing anybody typing any stuff there.
No, I want to ask a question, please.
Ask your question,
Can you hear
please.
me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, does it mean that you continue to add, include the...
Kelechi, I can't hear you again, no? Kelechi. Okay, I think I can't hear him again. Hello, Kelechi. Okay, I can't hear you, Kelechi. Maybe you work on your network or something, and then I'll be here to answer.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. What's your question?
It's network, but can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Okay. Maybe I should just continue. Kelechi, I think your network is bad, so maybe you would maybe switch to a better network and ask your question, or type your question.
All the functions that you're using in that you must give.
Just type your question in the chat. I can't hear you really. Yeah, type your question in the chat and I'll answer it. Just type it in the chat. Okay, so this is an example of a C program, and you have seen the end-to-end operation. Now for those just joining, there is something called Git, okay? Git and GitHub. Git and GitHub actually allows you to do what we call version control, okay? So I'll just show you now GitHub, okay? It allows you to do what we call as version control. That means as you are making changes to your file, there is actually a platform called GitHub that you can actually upload those changes you are making, that tracks the changes, okay? That is the right word. It tracks the changes. Now there is the concept of a repository. Note, please note, everyone, this is high level. This is just high level stuff. If I want to talk about Git and GitHub, then I would need to dedicate that particular time to Git and GitHub alone, okay? So this is just high level, just for those just joining the program, so you have an idea of what you will meet, okay, going forward. Now I can create what we call a repository, okay, and this repository would allow me to just name it anything. For example, I'm going to call it session right here, and then I will click on create repository, okay? So this is going to create a repository. Right now, what if once I connect my code, once I connect what the code I'm working on now, once I connect it to that repository, Git will start to track the changes I'm making, and when I finish coding, I can easily push those code to my GitHub repository. So that is the essence of Git and GitHub. It's just version control. It's not difficult, it's not hard, okay? It's just for version control, and it's not really it's worth looking into, it's worth understanding, but don't think, oh, Git and GitHub is very hard by the time you meet that in future. So I've created a repository, and the code I'm working on, as we progress, I'm going to add that repository to my computer. So when you add a repository, or when you are working with Git on your computer, it's called local repository. But if you are working with GitHub, which is on the internet, on the web, it's called remote repository. Okay, so once you connect your local and remote repository, it will allow you to what we call push your code. So I can always push my code to my remote repository. Why? It is essential to push your code so that other people can have access to your code. And this is the way the marker or the checker in this program is going to be able to grade your code, whether it's correct or it's wrong. Okay, you need GitHub for this. Okay, if you don't push your code, the checker is not going to be able to know what you have done. So your code doesn't stay on your computer. Your code is always going to be pushed to GitHub repository. So let us go back to our terminal. Okay, when I say terminal, I mean our Linux terminal. Remember, at the start of this session, I have connected via SSH to using this Git bash. Okay, and I have created a folder called session, and inside session I currently have nothing. Okay, as you can see, when I do ls, I currently have nothing. Now this brings me to what we call a Vim editor, which is my preferred text editor for Linux. Okay, I prefer using Vim, but like I said, you have VI, you also have Emacs at your disposal. Anyone you choose, that is fine. You can go with any one of your choice. So I'm going to teach you how you can create a file on your terminal. Really, remember, now I'm no longer on Windows. Now I'm now back to my shell. Okay, so how do you create a file? It's very simple. If the file is going to be an empty file, you use this command called touch. Okay, so if you type touch and the name of the file, so for example, I can say touch, let's say I want to create a Python file, for instance, or no, not a Python file, I'll just call it file1. Okay, so I will just say touch file1 like this, enter, and that file has been created. Let me admit this person. Okay, so those just joining, you're welcome. So if I say touch file1, you see file1 has been created because there are no errors. How do I know? ls is going to tell me now you have one thing called file1 in your session folder. Now I can check file1 permissions by doing ls-al, okay, which means list everything in the long format, and it's going to list the permissions. So if you look at my file1 permission, you will see that this dash means it's a file. Okay, the dash means it's a file. Let me just quickly high level once again. I've done this thing before, but high level explanation. This dash you see right here, the first dash you see, this one, it means you are dealing with a file. Why this D? The D you are seeing right here means you are dealing with a what? A directory. Okay, now the next set of things you see is arrow, W, and dash. Then you now see arrow dash dash. Then you see arrow dash dash. That RW means that the user has what we call what? Read, write permission, but the user does not have executable. Okay, the user does not have executable. The next is what? The group. Okay, the group has read permission, and it does not have write and executable. Why? The next one you see is what? Others. Okay, that means every other person on this computer has what? Read, but no write, no executable. Now for your program to work, when you are dealing with some of these tasks, you will need to grant executable permission to what? The user. And I'll show you how to grant executable permission to user right now. How do you do that? Very, very simple, guys. There is a command called chmod. Okay, change mode, that's what it means. And then you want to change the user. Okay, I'll now type u, and I want to just add executable permission to the user, and then I'll write the name of that file like this, file 1, right? Enter, no errors. Now let us check the permissions on that file 1. All we need to do is do ls-al like this and hit enter, and now you see the user now has executable. Can you see that, everyone? Now you see the user now has this executable, right? Before, when we checked it before, you saw that the user did not have executable, but now after we changed the permission, user now has executable permission. Questions? Okay, in the absence of no questions, I'm going to continue.
I have questions.
Okay, please ask.
Like, I don't really understand those numbers. Like, let me say, for example, change mode 777.
Yes.
Change mode 7555. All those, I don't really understand them.
I have covered this extensively in the previous video. Like, if you watch the previous video, you will not have any question regarding permission again, I assure you.
Okay, where can I get the video?
Okay, I posted the link on Slack, but I will copy the link and post before this is over. Like, just watch that video. Anything, all these things I'm explaining, it will become peanut butter to you. Like, very easy. Okay. Questions? Any other question? Okay, no questions. Let me continue what I was doing. So if we do ls now, you see that we have file. Or not, remember, the way I created this file was using the touch command. I'm going to create file with another kind of command called echo, and you have seen this one before. All I need to do is I'm just going to say echo this, or I'll just say school, for instance, school, school, and then the name of the file. So I'm going to call this file 2, okay, like this, and then I'll hit enter. Now you see, now if I do ls, you see I have file 1 and I have file 2. Okay, how can I check the content of file 2? Here, all I need to do is I need to say cat, right, and the name of that file, file 2, like this, enter, and you see the content of file 2 is what? School. So that's what the cat command does for you. I can also check the permissions for file 2 by doing -LA or -AL. Whatever command you do will work the same way. So you look at file 2, user doesn't have executable permission. Also, group does not have executable, and you see others does not have executable. So if I want to change the permission for everybody, I can do ch mode, right, and then I can do the question you were asking, I can do 777, okay, and then I can now say file 2. There is a method to this, okay. I know I'm not guessing. Go and watch the previous video, you will understand the method, why it is 777, and how to do different combination that will give you specific results. Okay, this 7 stands for something, right? Now if we do ls-la once again, now you see that look at file 2, which I changed. Everybody now has read write executable, read write for everybody. Okay, all right. So one more way I'm going to show you how to create a file again on this Linux terminal is using the text editor. Okay, I use Vim. Okay, for example, I'll just say Vim, and then I'll type file 3, okay, like this. Now when you hit enter, watch, this is what the Vim text editor looks like. Now under here you see it says file 3 here, which I'm highlighting. It says file 3, new file. If I want to type inside this thing, it's not possible to just start typing. No, that's not how it works. There are 2 modes, okay. There's what we call the insert mode. If I type I first, you see now it says insert, then now I can start typing inside here. So if I want to run my command, I can now say hash, let's say this is a C program, I can now say hash include, for example, I'm typing a C program, and then I can start typing So let's say standard stdio.h, okay. Sorry, someone tried to join. Where was I? Here. Okay, so let's say include std standard input output.h, right? Enter, and I continue typing now. Now the next thing is you want to do your docstring, okay, which is simply a multi-line comment. So star, and then you enter. You have to add another star here, and let's say this is our main, and we call this entry point. Not compulsory you write it this way, but this is just the spec we are given. Entry point, another star again, and you want to say our return statement is going to be what? Always going to be 0, and then you want to say success like this, okay, and then you want to go down and you want to end this thing like this. Now you have given this program your docstring. The next thing is you want to start writing your code. Every code must go into the main function if you are dealing with a C program, okay. Now the next thing is you want to say int, okay, and the name of the function is going to be main, and inside the function I'm not going to put anything. Watch what's going to happen. I'm not going to put anything. I'll just go down and then I'll start writing my code. So if I write my code, I need to come down, and let's just say I write just one simple printf statement, the same thing you saw before, right? I'm just going to say printf, and then I would come inside here and say welcome, okay, welcome everyone, okay, and then I have to close this, right? I'm purposely trying to make some mistakes in this code so that I'll show you how the linter works, okay. Now I'll hit enter and I'll close this bit. No, okay, I need return statement, right? So before I put the return statement, I will close it. So now so this is closing, right? So now I've closed this. Now you know I was explaining something to you that if you are new, you need to learn how to use this Vim, okay. So for example, if I want to move in this Vim, and I can use the R key like this. So I'm currently pressing the arrow on my keyboard. Up and down or side will move you to any direction you want while you are in insert mode, okay. Now if I want to create, let's say I want to create a line above my printf, okay, so I can leave insert mode, right, and then I'll just type, okay, sorry, if I want to create a line below, I can type leave insert mode and type O, and that's going to create a line below. But if I'm in insert mode, right, like this, I can simply go over here and hit enter, and this will create another line, right? So in the new line I can write what I want, or once again you can go back, press escape to leave that thing, and then type O, and it creates another line below. Now I'll go back to my insert mode again. Let me show you. As I'm pressing, you see it's changing. So I'm in the insert mode, and in this insert mode now I want to write what I forgot to write, which is my return, okay. So here I'm going to say return, and I will say 0 for instance, okay. And let's close this, okay. Remember, we need to close that. Now the next thing I'll do is I'm going to save this. So to save this, what you do is you go back, you leave your insert mode, okay, which the second mode is your command mode, okay, and then you type shift, and you want to do this colon right here and type WQ, okay. So that's going to save and quit. WQ means write and quit, okay. So now if you look at when I do ls again, watch this. Now I see I have file 3. Let's check out the content of file 3, okay. The content of file 3, we can check it by typing cat, and we say file 3 like this. Now you see the content of file 3 is giving us the content of file 3. Now because I am connected via SSH, see, first I want to rename file 3. So I want to rename file 3 to hello.c or welcome.c, okay. So how do I rename a file? Very simple, okay. You rename a file with mv command. This means move, Now this move command can do two things for you. It can rename a file or a folder, or it can move a file to a specific location. So I will use it to rename now. So what do I want to rename? I want to rename file 3, and I want file 3 now, the new name is going to be welcome.c, like this. Enter. You see, now if I do ls once again, now I have file 1, file 2 and welcome.c. Now the issue of the linter, which is the Betty linter, just allows you to make it just ensures that you are writing clean code. That is all. It's not big deal. Okay, so look, Betty, okay, and I want to check this welcome.c if it's going to pass the Betty linter test. Now all I need to say is Betty welcome, okay, .c, like this. Watch this. You see, now Betty is giving me some errors, and it's telling me the errors. First, it says int main should probably be int main void. Can you see? So it's telling me to add void inside int. The next error, it says parentheses are required on a return statement, right? And you see, it's telling me total errors 2, 10 lines check. How do I correct those errors? I'll go back to that file again in Vim. So I can say Vim, and then I can say what? Welcome.c, like so. Enter, and it's going to open this. I type I to edit this. I'll go back to those places. Sorry, someone's trying to join. Where was I? Okay, so I'll go back to the places where I had errors. Okay, for example, it's telling me on your main you need to add void. Do you get? So all I need to do now is go to my main and type void. That is the first error it asks me to correct. And then it's telling me your return statement must have parentheses. So now you see, now I'll put a parenthesis around my return statement. And then final error, which I already spot by myself, is that I did not add a colon here, a semicolon, sorry, like this. You see that? So every line must end with a semicolon. Okay, so once I'm fine with this editing, you can now do your escape to leave insert mode, and then WQ to save that bit, enter, and it's going to go back here. Now I can clear my screen just to show you. Now I'll test again, Betty, like this, and then I'll type welcome.c. okay, now you see it just says welcome.c6 warning, no description found for return value of main. You see that? So now I have to correct that again. So I'll go to Vim and go to welcome.c, like this. Okay, so you want to give this description, right? And the accepted way is to actually write return, do insert. So this is the accepted way, is to write your return and a colon, and then write always 0 success. And okay, I think it was written in capital letter. Let me just follow the standard. Okay, I think this is the standard. So once you are fine with that, you go back here, WQ and that. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. If your test does not pass Betty, there's no way it will pass the checker. Okay, so if I do Betty welcome.c now and let it, now can you see, now it just says main. Okay, so no more errors. That's why you see main. Okay, once again, what are the things I had to correct for it to pass this Betty? You go back to Vim and let's do my welcome, like this, welcome.c, and it opens. So what are the things I corrected? First, your main should have description, which is this. Your return, the description should be like this. Okay, then your code int, there should be no spaces before your code. For example, I can come back here, I can do I, and I can put a space. Maybe I'm trying to make my code fine. Sorry, not there. I can come to where I have my print statement and put a space here. Can you see that? It's not going to pass Betty, because I mean Betty does not want any space before your before a line, really all the lines should be left aligned, okay, without spaces in front. All right, so if I want to quit this thing without saving, I want to quit this Vim, but I don't want to save the changes. All I need to do is go back to my command mode and go to my column and type Q and exclamation. That means quit without saving. Okay, now I can check what I have here. I can do this cat like this, and then I can do welcome.c, enter, and you see it's going to give me exactly what I have in that file. Any questions so far? Questions, please.
Sorry, please. This no leaving of lines before code, is it only applicable to this Git bash terminal or this their terminal?
No. See, there's okay. Let me answer your question. There is some, you need to understand what's happening. There's something called Betty linter. Okay, Betty linter. Now this code is actually very correct, and to even prove that it's correct, I'll just copy this code. Yeah, sorry, 1 second. I'll just highlight and copy. So one of the benefits of using this Git bash is you can copy code. You can actually highlight and copy, right? So I'll just show you something. You see, now this same code I wrote, I'm going to I'm on my Visual Studio Code now. I'm going to create a welcome, the same welcome.c. Watch this, welcome.c, right? And that is it. Now I'll paste exactly what I have. Okay, if I save this, watch, you can see that by default Visual Studio Code is going to add some space. Can you see? It's going to add spaces like so. What it means is, let me run this code. So I'll click on run. I'll click on run without debugging and watch what happens. Select my GCC compiler. Now do you see, now I have welcome.exe. That means I can now come to my terminal and I can do welcome.exe. Enter. Now it says welcome everyone, which is what I have in this code. So this code actually works. But if we move this code that works the way it is now, see, I'm going to copy this. So I've copied it the same way it is, no changing anything. I'll go back to my, I'll go back here, okay, which is my terminal. I would just clear this and show you, illustrate something to you. Okay, now in session folder, I'm going to create a file with Vim, and the name of that file will just be test.c. okay, so it's a C file called test.c in Vim. Now in Vim I can do shift and enter, shift insert on my Windows machine, and it will paste exactly that thing I copied. Can you see there are spaces in front of this, right? Now I will escape and save this. So I'll do this and do WQ like so. You see, now I've saved this. Look, I can do cat just to show you that it's there, and do test.c. okay, now you see the code there. Let us now use Betty to check our test.c if our code is properly written. This same code that works. Okay, now I'll do Betty and then I'll do test.c. Can you see? It's giving me some warning. What are the warnings you see? Please, no space at the start of a line. The same on line on 8 too. Please, no space at the start of a line. So Betty is just a way to format your code, a way to write. It's just telling you, please, when you are writing, don't put any space. It doesn't mean that when you put a space at the beginning of a line, that code is wrong. No, the code is not wrong. But the Betty linter prefers you not to put a space in front of the line. So to correct that, all you need to do is go back to your Vim and go to your test.c like this, and then remove the spaces you have in front of those lines. Okay, so to move word by word, so I'm in insert mode now. To delete that, you just go here, you see, and delete the spaces. So no space should be there, right? You go here too, you delete the spaces. That's what Betty is telling you. Now if you escape and save this with WQ once again, you see, now let's check our code. Now all you need to do is say, Betty, please check the test file, like so, enter, and you see now it says main, no errors. Okay, do we understand? Do we understand this now?
Yes, I do.
All right, so so that's me just going over the whole Betty linter thing, because I mean that's going to give people a lot of issues. So your code.
Sorry, can I ask one more question?
Yes, ask as many
like that
as
Betty
you want.
really disturbing me.
You said what? Come again?
What? No, I said that Betty is really giving me issues.
Okay.
Like, what does it mean to indent a code using a tab? Tab spaces.
Tab, indent a code using tab space. What code are you indenting?
Using tab.
Using cal.
No, tab. That's what Betty told me as an error.
Oh, okay.
I don't understand.
Okay, now it depends on the code. Really, I've shown you what I've been able to do is I've shown you exactly how Betty prefers you to write your code, and I've experimented and shown you different scenarios where Betty would throw an error to you. And the way Betty prefers you to write your code, once again, is simple. All you do is follow the guidelines that I'm talking about here, and even if you don't, it will keep throwing error until you give it what it wants. The first thing is you need to have a description. This doc string, it needs to be like this. Okay, first a description for main and a description for return. These two things, Betty needs them to be there, compulsory. The next thing is Betty does not want you to have space before this. So probably you did something like this. Maybe your code is something like this. See, I'm going to say, you see, if I run this code now, let me show you. Now you see this opening curly brackets, I brought it up to this main void. Okay, let me save it and run it with Betty and see what happens. The error is going to give me. Okay, so, but if this same code, if I run it, if I compile it and run it, it's going to work. It doesn't mean the code is wrong. It's just a style of typing that Betty wants you, so that at the end of the day you have clean code. That is just what it means. Nothing special. It doesn't mean your code is not working. That is why I took time to actually show you on Visual Studio Code, so that you can copy your code and test it on Visual Studio Code to see, okay, this is the correct thing. It's just my formatting that is wrong. Then you read the error that Betty is throwing and you make your correction. So I'm going to save this now, like this, WQ once again to save. Now I've saved this. Now I can let me clear this so we have a clean space. You see, now I can say Betty, and what's the name of the file we just edited? I think test.c. Watch. Do you see? Now Betty is saying open brace, which is this opening following function declaration, goes on the next line. Can you see that? So Betty will always tell you exactly what the problem is and how you can solve that problem. Okay, so what you just need to do is read this properly, understand it, and then solve it. So it's saying that your opening brace following the function declaration should go on the next line. That is what it means. So all I need to do is just come back to this and say test, okay, and then I'll go back and look for that opening brace following the function. Remember, following the function call, it was very specific, so I need to do I first. Okay, and yeah, I guess you see this is what Betty wants me to do. It says the opening brace following the function should be on the next line. and I'll just do that, and WQ to save it. And now if I do my Betty test again and say Betty test.c, now it's not going to throw me any errors. It just says main. Questions? Any question? Okay, in the absence of no questions, let's just talk about a few things in C programming language that would be beneficial to you, really, that will help you solve the tasks you have at hand. So what are some of the things I'll discuss? Number one, I'll talk about variables. Okay, then I will talk about I'll talk about variables. Yeah, I'll talk about loop. I'll talk about conditionals, and probably I would talk about the put character. Okay, so I'll just talk about these 4 things, and I'll give you room to ask your questions. So are we ready? Yeah, if you are ready for the next thing, I want you to type ready in the chat so that I will know I'm not talking to myself. Everyone, if you're ready, type ready in the chat so I can know you are following and we are good to go. Yeah, I want to see you're ready in the chats. Yeah, oh, you're ready. I want to see you're ready in the chats. I'll know we are good to go. Yeah, ready. Okay, let me. Yeah, good. I can see everyone. Theodore, I can see you. Samjo, Messi. Yeah, great to have you all here. Great to have you all here. Okay, let's see the error. Shift this. If you need to shift your code, away from the left margin, Betty prefers that you use tab instead of space. Okay. Show with tab is also allowed by Betty. Okay, someone is correcting me. Theodore says the indentation with tab is also allowed by Betty. Oh, great. I didn't even know this, right? All right, great. Thanks, Theodore. So the indentation is also allowed by Betty, but you need to use tab. That is what Theodore says. I've not tried that. I just noticed that whenever I put a space, Betty throws error, and when I remove the space, everything works fine. So I came to that conclusion. But thanks, Theodore. I'll try using tab indentation to see if it works really. Okay, so I'll try tab indentation. So Theodore said that, and maybe we can try this really. But in case it doesn't work, just take away the space altogether, and that should work just fine. All right. So let's talk about variables for a sec, and then we'll go over to for loops, while loops, if else statements, and this puts char function. Okay, put character. I'll talk about the function and how you use it, because a lot of the tasks you need to use this put character function. Okay, it works just as printf, right, to print stuff to your console, but it works a little bit differently from printf. Okay, let's go, guys. Now, variables. Every programming language you deal with variables. Okay, and what are variables? A variable is very simple. A variable is simply a container where you save data. Okay, a container where you save data. Now, in some other programming language, if you are working with variables, you just say the name of the variables and you type what you want to save inside the variable. Okay, in Python, for instance, in Python, you just say the name of the variable, and then you say, okay, for example, name equals innocent, for instance. Let me practicalize what I'm talking about. On my Visual Studio Code, guys, remember, everything I'm doing on Visual Studio Code, I can simply just copy it and go back to my VI on my terminal and paste it there, and it works the same way. So for ease, okay, I will just be working here and talking about the things I want to talk about here. Okay, so this Visual Studio Code also allows me to create a Python file. So I will create a main.py. We are not dealing with Python, but I want to show you some things, okay, that are important. For example, in Python, if I want to print something to the console, I need to use this print, and inside here I can just say hello world, for instance, okay, and I'll save this like this. And if I want to run this code, all I need to do here on my terminal is say py and do main.py, okay, and it prints hello world. Now a variable is simply a container for saving data, okay. For example, I can say x equals 1, for instance. Notice that I don't need to close it if I'm talking to Python. And then I can say y equals 5, okay. Now this x and y you see here, they are called variables, and if I want to add x and y, I can say z equals x plus y, like this, okay. I can say z equals x plus y. Why am I doing this? Because it's very easy for you to understand, and I know you can easily understand if I say print z. Now I will save this, okay. If I come back to my terminal and clear this, and then let me raise this up a little, now I'll run that program. So I'll do py and I'll do main.py right here, and you see it says 6, okay, because z equals x plus y, and x plus y is 6. The x, y, z you see, they are called variables, so they are just used to save these values 1, 5, and the addition of x plus y. This is what we call a variable. Now I will go back to C, okay. Now I was working with Python, right? So I'll close this Python. I'll create a new file called C. I'll create it. I'll say var.c like this, and now this is a variable called C. Note the rule in C is, before you can use, let's say, a printf function, for instance, you need to include the header file, okay. So I could do this. I say include, and then here you want to put standard input.output stdio like this .h, and you have included the header file. Now for the purpose of this program, you need to also include the doc string like this, okay, /* enter, and then you need to describe your main function. So I'll say main, and you always want to just describe this properly, entry points, and then here I need to say what? Return. So what am I returning? I'm going to return always 0, okay. So just say always 0, and you want to put success like this, okay. Then the next thing is you want to define your main function. So your main function always says int main like this, and inside main you want to pass in the void argument, okay. And then you go down, and here you want to write your code. So how do we define or declare a variable? Remember, in Python all we needed to say was just x, and we say equals, but it doesn't work that way in C, okay. In C you need to write the data type of that variable. So what data type would that variable contain? Is it going to be a number, okay? Is it going to be a string? For numbers we have, is it going to be an integer? An integer is just a single number like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Or is it going to be a float, a number that has a floating point like a decimal? For example, 5.6, 8.7, that's a float. Is it going to be a long? Is it going to be a long? Is it going to be a double? You know, so there are different data types. Now let's start with int. So in C you have to say the data type you want to save. In the same example I illustrated with Python, I'm just going to say int x, okay. Now you can do int x and you say equals to something, but see, in C you can actually do int x and close this, right? And here you can now come and define what x would hold. So you can say x equals 1, right? And close this. Now after defining x, I'm just going to clear this bit. After defining x and I'm saying x equals 1, I can also do int y. So instead of saying x equals 1, I'm first going to say int y, alright? And I also want to do int what? Z, like this. Okay, now on the next line I can easily say x equals 1, right? And then I can say y equals 6, right? And then I can do z equals what? X plus y. So the variables you have here, right? You have x, you have y, you have z. Those are the variables. 1, 6 and x plus y are the values, okay? And now of course you have to terminate every line in C, okay? And then let us print the value of z. The way you print in C is you say print f. In Python you just said print. Now you can say print f right here, okay? And then you just need to include the variable, and you need to close this, okay? Now if you do this and you save this, how do you now run this program? C is a compiled language, okay? C is a compiled language, whereas Python is an interpreted language, okay? Now I will now compile this by going here, run without debugging, and choose my compiler, which is this GCC. And you see, now I can now come back here. If you watch here now, over this place, you see I have var.exe, right? Now I can come back here and then I can, let me clear this. Let me hide this. Okay. Okay, so one sec. So you see I have passing argument 1 printf makes pointer whatever. Now there is something. Now when you are using printf, you have to include a placeholder here, okay? So inside this string I can do percentage symbol like this and do d. That means this is going to be expecting an integer value, okay? So I can save this. So z is going, this %d means whatever we have in z, put it inside here, okay? Right? Now if I come back here and click run and run without debugging once again, you need to compile that whenever you make changes. Alright, and then you can now run your terminal. So if I go back here and I click on terminal and I say new terminal and I do a var, so you need to do var.exe, okay? And okay, sorry, I typed car not var, so I need to close that and type var.exe like this. And then okay, what am I missing? Missing something. So z equals xyz. Yep, everything seems good. Take I add z. Okay, all right, x equals 1, y equals 6, z equals x plus y, and then print this. So I'll save this. Okay, one sec, let me just get rid of this file and compile it again. So here I'm going to compile it again now and click on run without debugging like this. Okay, so what am I missing? Int main void. Oh, okay, sorry, one more thing, I'm not returning anything, okay? Sorry. So you need to return something, okay? So I'm going to put return 0 and close that. So you can see that when you encounter errors, you need to be able to read what you are seeing, and then you know how to solve that issue. So I'm not returning anything, so it's not printing definitely, right? So I'm going to compile this once again after my return statement. Yep. and then I can clear this. Now I can run this. And how do I run it? Once again, var.exe, like so, enter, and you see it says 7. Okay, so remember guys, your return statement is important. Okay, now this is a summary of variables. Okay, now I will just quickly touch on in fact we can take more practice on variables if you like. The first thing I will talk about is how did I define these variables, or how did I declare these variables. You see here I'm saying int x, int y, int z. Actually there is a better way to do this. Okay, someone is trying to join. Let me just admit. Okay, as I was saying, yeah, there's a better way to do this. Actually you can do x, y, and z on the same line. Okay, you can still do this and it will work the same way. Okay, so you can do x, y, and z on the same line and say x equals 1, y equals 6, and z equals x plus y. If I save this, remember, if you save it, it doesn't just work automatically. You need to compile it so it knows that you've made some changes to your program. And then once you're done, you can now do var.exe, and you see it says 7. Okay, now there are other data types. Okay, for example, there is the character data type. Okay, now I will explain what the character data type is and how you can use it. But for now, because of time, let me talk about something that is very important and very vital to the completion of your task, and that is called loops. Okay, so I'm going to say loops.c, right? And now for loops, it's very easy. There is something called for loop, while loop, and do while loop. Okay, and we'll just take them one at a time. So for loops, yeah, there is a syntax for for loop. What do I mean by syntax? Syntax just means the rules that govern the structure of your code, how you write your code. Those rules, something must go before something. It must be in a certain way. So let me show you for loops now. This is the syntax. We have for, okay, and now inside these brackets, you have to first you have to mention exactly what your variable is going to start with here. Okay, then here you have to check for condition right here, and here you have to perform an increment. Okay, so here you start, here you check, and here you what? Increase or decrease. So you can either increase or you can decrease here, and I will explain all this. Now the block of code here to here like this, something will happen while this loop is running. Okay, so here is what? Do something. Okay, this is the syntax for a for loop. Once again, if you are dealing with other programming language, a for loop is so easy that in fact in Python, for example, in fact you don't even need to know start, you don't need to know check. There is a whole different way to do this, right? But let me explain, because we're doing C. Now the for loop happens like this. First, remember the rule. Okay, I like to write this all the time so that you get yourself acquainted with this. So don't always form the habit of going copy and pasting that thing. So I could easily just come to hello.c and copy this whole thing and paste it. But no, you want to write it, especially if you are just starting to code with C, so that you know that it is actually include, you know that it is standard input output.h. Okay, standard input output.h, which is the header file, because you'll be using print function. And then you know that you want to also what? Include this, which is your doc string, right? And then you want to do this and say what your main is going to be, and you want to just say whatever description you want. So I'm going to say entry point, and then you know you need to describe your return statement. Okay, and then your return is going to this always 0, right? And for what? Success, like this. And then once you are done with this, you want to now define your main function. So int main and void, like this, and then here is where your actual code goes in. Okay, so let us write a for loop now. Now supposing we want to print 1 to 10, for instance. Okay, we want to print 1 to 10. There is a way to do it. We are going to say, normally using printf, for instance, we'll say printf1, okay, printf2, printf3, and so on and so forth until we say printf10. This is one solution, okay, but there is a problem with this solution. What if we wanted to print 1 to 100? Is this how we're going to say printf all through? That is where loop comes in. You can actually use a loop. If the operation is repetitive, you can use a loop to actually perform such operation. For example, printing 1 to 10 is a repetitive task. Okay, so let us now see how we can use a for loop. Now remember the syntax, the for loop construct which I told you. You start your loop with what? For, okay, and then in fact let me even say something about Betty. Now if I start my loop with for and I do this, right, no space between the for and this, Betty would most likely throw an error. So Betty likes you to do for and space and then this, okay, and then you tell this is where your code is going to go. So that do something that I wrote here, do something, this is where it goes. Okay, so how do we write the construct? Remember I told you start. So let's say for x. Now if I start and say for x equals 0, so I'm starting when x is 0, okay, and I'm saying check as long as x is less than or as long as x is less than or equal to 10, for instance. What do we want to do? Continue to increase x, which is x plus plus. X plus plus means increase x by 1 every time you run this loop. And then what do we want to do? We simply want to print x. Okay, so here we simply want to say print f and what? X. Now remember, we want to always have our return. So return what? 0 right there. And we always want to close this, right? And we always want to close our print statement. Okay, now one thing we are missing, if you see, we have a squiggly line under x, a red squiggly line. Why? Because your program does not yet know what x is, right? If it's in Python, you don't need to include the data type, but in this programming language you actually need to say int x. So you can do your int. Now you see the squiggly line, the red squiggly line is gone. You can type int x, which is the preferred way that I want you to do, or I mean you can just even come here and instead of doing that you can say int x right inside here. Okay, so you see I'm going to do that outside, and make sure you close that. Now I'll say for x equals 10, as long as x is less than or equal to 10, what do you want to do? Increase x by 1. And here you just want to print x to console, right? Now I'll save this, and then I'm in loops.c, so you can go and run without debugging and choose your GCC compiler, and this is going to run. And then here, of course, one thing we forgot again, if you are using printf, you need to actually use a placeholder. So I'm doing %d, okay, and I will save this once again, and then I would compile this. So if you are using that, you need to use a placeholder and run without debugging. Yep, and everything, all things being equal, we have our code. Okay, so yeah, I hope I'm not forgetting something. Int x for x equals 0, x is less than or equal to 10, x plus plus, printf %d x. Yeah, everything looks great. New terminal, and okay, let's just compile this again just to make sure we're doing it right. run without debugging, C++, GCC compiler. Yep, yeah, everything works well now. So I'm just going to clear my console, and then you want to run it by saying loops.exe, which is this exe file that was created here, and enter, and you see it just prints 0, 1, 2, 3 up to what, 9 and 10. Okay, so it prints 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 10. Okay, now there is something you can use again. Instead of saying print f, okay, there is the put character that actually helps you print each of the values of x each time you are looping. Okay, so that's that put chr. Now when you are doing the tags, some of the tags will tell you specifically to use this put character. Okay, then here you can just say put car, and under put car you can now say what, x. Okay, and of course you want to close this like this. Okay, so this should work. I will run this now, run this, start debugging, and this. Okay, yep, and if you want to run it, you just do loops.exe and enter. Okay, so this is now correct, guys. So actually you need to use a character for this and also for this. Let's say we want to use a for instance, we want to print from A to Z. Okay, so we can print A, we can stay for x equals A as long as x is less than or equals to Z. Okay, we can do x plus plus, and we can use put car to print this. So the error I was having was this needs to be a character, this needs to be a character. Okay, so if we do that now, and we want to always compile our program after each work. Okay, so once we do that and we compile our program, now you see that it's going to print what, A to Z exe like this. So it's going to print A to Z. Now if you want to print this in reverse, all you need to say is the start point now needs to start from z like this. Okay, and then you want to say as long as x from x equals z. Now what you are checking will be as long as x is less than or equals a. Okay, not less than. Now it's going to be greater than. As long as x is greater than or equals a. Now this x plus plus is going to be x minus minus. Okay, so if you save this bit right here and you do put car x, now you see that it will print what? No, you have to compile first. If not, it's going to print the same old thing. So once you save this, and then let me clear my screen, and then you do loops.exe, now it's going to print from Z to A, which means in reverse. Okay, now remember we have done 1 to 9. Okay, now if you want to print 1 to 9 again, all you need to do is you start from okay, I think I must have CLS, Control C. Okay, I'm in my debug, sorry. Okay, so if you want to print from 1 to 9, yeah, you have to start from what, 0 to 9. Sorry, you have to say 0, and x you want to say 9, but instead of greater than, you want to say less than. Okay, less than, like this. So you are starting from 0 and you are checking. As long as x is less than or equal to 9, you want to do x plus plus like this. Okay, so if you do this now, remember guys, you don't have to make the mistake of just adding just 0 like this, because you are dealing with this put character. Okay, so this has to go in single quotes, right? So if I save this now and I run my code, run without debugging, like this, and then I run my code, and that's loops.exe. like this. It prints 0 to 9, right? But if you want to now add, let's say 0 1 2 3 4 to 9, now you want to add the hexadecimal codes. For example, you know hexadecimal A B C to F, right? All you need to do is you need to repeat your for loop. Okay, so if I come back here and okay, let me just copy this for sake of time, and I come here and I repeat my for loop. Now what am I trying to repeat? I'm trying to print from what? A. So it should start from A, but as long as and you can give it another variable just to, so that you don't confuse your program really. So I'll say y. Now I'll now say as long as y equals A, and always check if y is less than or equal to f, then increase what? Y. So I'll change this to y. I'll also change this one to y. I'll also change this one to y, and then I'll use the put character y. Okay, so I'll say that again. The difference you have to note is when you are using this put character, your these values should be characters, not numbers, okay, or integers. Okay, they should be characters. All right, so if we do this, let me just admit those who are trying to join quickly. Okay, can't see anyone again. Okay, so if we do this now and we save this, remember your return statement always has to be there. You go to run and you run without debugging, and you select this. Yep, and then you can now run your code, and loops.exe. now you see it prints 0 to 9 and adds A B C D E F, right? So let's say you want to add you want to print a comma right after each of the values. You can just put that as a character. Okay, so you can do put char. Now when you are printing character, you don't use double quotes. Okay, you use this single quotes and you just say comma like so. Okay, so on each of the for loop you want to add a comma. So after that you save this, and remember you want to terminate this. You want to terminate that. Then after you save this, you run it, compile it. Okay, great. And then you can easily run the code now by saying loops.exe, and you see it has added a comma for 0 1 2 3 up to 9. Okay, note that it didn't add a comma for the second for loop. I mean, you can do same. Okay, so you can do same here. You can just copy these bits. You can copy these bits right here. This is not a requirement. I'm just showing you how you can add a comma. Okay, let's say you want to add a comma. So you can save that, run it now. So once again, nobody is a superpower. Even I myself, you see, I learn every day. And one of the things that will make you really be able to go through the task is your ability to just search for exactly what you need. And if, for example, when I was using this put character, you see, I'd even forgotten that, oh, this variables needed to just be single quotes, and I was using trying to use the percent symbol to find my way around. But the moment I just searched Google, I already knew that, okay, this is the mistake I'm making, single quotes, right? So your ability to search Google, some of the questions you would, if you rely on going to always going to the Slack to ask your question as your first point of call whenever you hit a challenge, you will have issues, right? Because most people will give you different answers as against when you have a challenge, you simply just go to Google, you search that particular problem, and the answer will come out. Okay, so we've done that. We can now do loops.exe, and you see that everything has a comma. Now you see that F has a comma also, but let me show you one trick that you can use to remove this comma from F is to use a simple if statement. Okay, now that takes me to what? If statement. And for that, I'm going to actually create another file, and I'm just going to call it conditionals. So con.c, which I'll discuss conditionals here. Okay, so con.c, the name con is not valid as a file folder. Okay, I'll call it cond.c, right? So these conditionals, I'm not going to stick to my rule today. I'm just going to go back to my loops, and I will copy everything I have here so that we can talk about conditionals. Okay, if you have questions, please unmute and ask. If you have questions, you have suggestions, just go ahead, unmute yourself and ask me, and I will be willing and glad to answer your questions. Okay, sorry. So my notebook, my pen is currently obstructing me. Let me just close it. Yeah, so I'll just copy this and go back to my cond file and paste it. Okay, now I believe we understand the loops that we've done. We've been able to use loops to print out. Now let us see conditionals and how we can use conditionals. Okay, so for this printing of let's print A to Z, for instance. So I'm just going to change this to A, and I'm going to change this to Z. Okay, and I'm printing it in order. Okay, and I'm going to remove the comma. Remember, we are doing conditionals, if-else statements. Oh, I forgot to talk about while loops. I'll talk about it, don't worry. I'll talk about while loops. But let us assume that we want to print this A to Z now. Okay, and I'll save this. Let's make sure our code runs correctly. So I'm going to, remember we are on cond file now, so I'll run without debugging just to make sure our code runs without errors. Okay, so yeah, it runs without errors. You see now we have this cond.exe. So here I can just do cond.exe and it prints A to Z. So let's assume that we want to print A to Z, but we want to omit M, and we also want to omit X, for instance. Okay, we want to omit M and we want to omit X. Okay, that is the task now. How do we do that? We can use conditionals. So in our conditional statement, our conditionals, this is the syntax. Let me show you the syntax. The syntax for conditionals is always, the syntax for conditionals, I'll ignore this. So the syntax for conditionals is if. Okay, they are also called if-else statements, right? So if you check for something here, if a condition, this is the condition, if a condition is true, okay, what should you do? Here you are going to do something. Okay, right? So this is the basic syntax for if statement. Now there is the if-else statement. Okay, so that means we can say if we check for a condition is true, we can say do something. Then here we can say else, E-L-S-E. We can say else, just do something here. Okay, there is another. So this is one way, this is one syntax, this is another construct. Now the last one is if you check for a condition and it's true, do something. Else if, there's called else if. That means you want to check for another condition, do something. Okay, and you can have as many else if as possible. Okay, then finally you can now have your else, which says what? If for every other condition, do something. Okay, so I will use that same this same syntax to actually print A to Z, but I'm going to omit M and I'm going to omit X. Okay, so let's do that task quickly. Now, how do I do that? All I need to do is I'm going to say my if, and then you want to check for something here. This is the syntax now, right? Then here, this is where your code goes in. So I'm going to just cut this part and then place it inside here like this. So what am I checking? I'm checking I'm checking if the value of X, see, if the value of X is not equal to M, like this, it's not, as long as the value of X is not equal to what? Is not equal to M, right? Print it, print the other things. Okay, so I will save it. That means it will check each time, and it will ensure that what is printing is not M. Remember, the task is for us to omit M and X, but I want to take it step by step so that you will understand what is happening here. Let me admit who is trying to join. Okay, so I want to take this step by step so that you understand. Now let's first omit M first. So we will compile this now, okay? And then we've compiled successfully. Okay, so let's run this. And how do we run? Loops.exe. Watch now. You see that, okay, which one are we running? Sorry, COND. I'm so sorry. I was running loops. Okay, so we run cond.exe, right? Like this. Now watch, you see M is gone. Look, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, N. There's no M. M is gone. Why? Because of the condition we are giving it. We are saying print everything. As long as that thing is not M, print it. That's what we are doing right here. Okay? Now, how do we omit X? There are logical operators. Okay, now that logical operator, you can say check if this and this is true. If the two things pass this test, then do this. Okay, so how do we say this and in C? You do and double and like this. This and I believe it's called ampersand. So you do this double ampersand symbol and you see us do it right away. Okay, so let's do it quickly. Now I'm saying here, so here I'm saying as long as X is not M, and like this double ampersand, and what, X is not equal to what? Is not equal to X. Is not equal to X. So I'm going to this X. Okay, let's not get confused here. You know that this X, let's not get confused. You know this X we are dealing with is actually the variable. You know we have done variable. This X2 is actually the variable. Why this other X is the value. So don't get confused. There are two different things. Okay, so after this now we are saying check if make sure X is not M and this variable called X is not the character X. Are you getting? If it meets this condition, then print it. Okay, that's what we are saying. Now run this, run without debugging. Yep. Okay, so now I'm here and now I can run that by saying cond.exe, which is the file name. Now you see, now we have A, B, C, D. We are missing M and we are missing X from this thing. Okay, all right, any questions so far? Questions, please.
Question here, sir.
Okay, yeah, ask your question.
You are trying to show us how to omit the last comma.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you for bringing me back to that. Okay, so let me see. Okay, let me add a comma here, and let me just omit it so you can see. So let's say And see, this thing is very, it's just using your conditionals and understanding how conditionals work. Really, that's what you can do anything by combining your knowledge of conditionals, for loops, while loops, and you know, if else statement and all. So see, if I want to add commas, all I need to now do is say put character, and you want to use the single quotes when you are dealing with characters, and then, sorry, not X, you want to say comma like this, right? And remember to always close this with a semicolon. Okay, so if I save this, and all things being equal, if I run this now, I'll just say start debugging, run without debugging, yeah, and then you see now I can now run my code. So you see the comma is going to be at the last value as well. Remember, we are still omitting, we haven't stopped omitting. So if I do cond and I do .exe like this, now I have this comma. You see this comma is still on the last, after Z we have this comma, right? What you want to do now is you want to use your if else statement. So over here now I'm going to say what do I want to check? I want to check, and I want to make sure that as long as the value of X is not equal to Z, not equal to Z, okay, what do I want to do? You want to put this, okay? So I want to now say put this comma. So I will now bring this comma here, cut this and have it here. Okay, so remember, you are looking for Z character, not Z itself. So look at the last value is Z, and yeah, I'm simply saying as long as this thing is not Z, put this comma there. Okay, so if I save this now, and I hope my code is okay. Yep, okay, everything is good. Now if I save this and I run this again, run without debugging, select this, select GCC, and give it some time. Yep, so I can clear this, and now watch, if I now do cond.exe, now you see there is no comma in Z. I'm simply using if statement. Just say as long as it's not Z, which means X, this symbol here means not equal to. If you want to check for equality, let me just quickly chip this in. If you want to check if A equals B, for instance, this is how you say it: A equals double equals B. This is how you check if A is equal to B. That means if A is the same as B. If you want to check if A is less than B, you say A less than B. If you want to check if A greater than B, you say A greater than B. If you want to check if A is not equal to B, you say A exclamation mark equal to B. This means not equal to B. Is A not equal to B? It will give you true or false. If you want to check, you can also check if A is less than or equal to B by saying if A is less than or equal to B. Or you want to check if it's greater than or equal to B, if A is greater than or equal to B. Okay, so these are the major things you will check, okay, when you are dealing with these conditionals. You will always want to check this or something like this. So you need to know this, the meaning of all this here. You need to know the meaning, right? And this. Any questions so far? Questions, please. Okay, in the absence of no questions, what else did we say we will treat? We have treated if. Okay, let me just show you if else statement. Okay, so you remember we've been dealing on if all along. Okay, so let me add if, else, if, and then else, so that we will have a better understanding of how this thing works. Okay, so first we are checking here, and we are saying if X is not equal to Z, we are saying put character, and we are saying comma. after our if statement, we can say else. Look, we can say else, and we can change what we are putting here. For example, I want to put pipe symbol, so instead of comma, I'm going to say pipe symbol. You all know pipe symbol now. This symbol, this pipe symbol. So I will now say, instead of putting comma, put pipe symbol. So I will save this. Now let me now run this so you see the results of using if else. So I'm checking that if, as long as it's not Z, do this. For any other case, do this. Okay, so I will run without debugging, select GCC. Yeah, okay, this is very good stuff. CLS, and then the name of the file is cond.exe, like this. Now can you see that instead of just not putting anything, it's saying pipe at the end, it's saying pipe symbol. Why? Because I'm saying for every other case, use the pipe symbol. Okay, so someone is trying to join. So one thing here is, if you do not practice on your own, like do it real coding, you will not get this. You may not understand how it works, but you need to actually practice, look at the code, see what it does, and then with the more you practice, the better you become, right? And you could even perfect your skills by teach others too, right? Like what we are doing here. So while I'm teaching you, I'm also learning. So answer questions, go on the platform, you see people asking questions, go there, respond to questions, do a session like this, and then try and explain. Remember the Feynman learning techniques. That is what I'm just putting into practice here. Okay, so that's that for this. Then what else? We've talked about variables, we've talked about loops, we've talked about conditionals, and we've dealt with the put star symbol, and I believe we've covered everything. Okay, let me just cover. Someone was about saying something. Okay, so let me cover while loops. Okay, while loops. You see this for loop thing? I'm going to yank it. Okay, so remember what yank means in Linux. I'm not going to go into that, but let us talk about while loops. So remember, previously we did a for loop that prints one, let's say prints 1 to 10 for instance, or prints 0 to 10 or whatever, that prints a sequence of numbers. Now you can use a while loop to do anything you can do with a for loop. You can do it with a while loop. Okay, for you to understand a while loop, I need to go over the syntax first, right? Now this is the syntax of while loops. What you do is, first you need to have initialized the variable. For example, initialization means, here we have said int x, we need to say x equals 0. You have initialized this variable. Okay, then your while loop comes in. Now you say while this is true. Okay, do this, and then increase. So your increment comes here. So your increment goes here. For example, let's say x plus plus or x minus minus. Increment or decrement goes next, right? You want to be careful when you are writing for loops and while loop, because there is something called infinite loop. Now this infinite loop means that your loop will continue forever, right, without stopping. Why? Because you did not include a stopping condition. This x plus plus is what we're calling this stopping condition. Is it double P or 1P? I don't know. Condition. Okay, so let's see it in practice. Okay, so now we want to print we want to print 1 to 10, for instance. Now the first thing is you need to have initialized. You need to say from x equals 1. This is the first requirement. You need to have initialized this. Then now your while loop will now start. So you say while, okay, and then you want to check something there. While something is true, your code block goes here. Okay, so you want to say while x, for instance, is what? Less than or equal to 10. The way I like to always say is I like to use the word as long as. So as long as x is less than or equal to 10, what do we want to do? We want to just print x. So I'm going to use my printf function now, okay, and I want to do printf. You can use putchar, we have seen both, okay. So I just want to do printf, so build my muscle memory of how it works. And then you want to say your percent symbol, right, and either d or I if you are dealing with integers, and then you want to write the name of the variable, which is x. Remember, always close this. If I run this, it will work, but what will happen is there will be no stopping condition. I mean, there's no increment or decrement. Okay, there's no increment or decrement, so it will work just once, and then it doesn't find increment or decrement and it cuts. But I need to what? Say x plus plus, so that each time the loop runs, it is going to what? Increase x by 1. This x plus plus is the same thing as saying x equals x plus 1. It is the same thing, no difference. But shortcut, you just say x plus plus like this. Sorry, we want to close this. Okay, so let's run this and see that yes, indeed, it's going to print 1 to 10. Okay, how do we run this? We go back here and we say run without debugging here like this, and yep, and then we can now run it. CLS, the name of the file is what? COND, so we say COND.exe. now after you have compiled it. Once you compile your C file in Visual Studio Code, and in fact in other editors, right, code blocks is another good IDE. There is something called IDE. It means integrated development environment. So code block, instead of using Visual Studio Code, you can decide to go for code blocks, or you can decide to go for, I mean, there are so many. Eclipse is there for writing C, C++, C# and all. Eclipse is a good one too. Visual Studio Code is also a good one. Okay, so if we have run this now and we do COND, you see now we have 1 to 10, right, using the while loop. This same thing can be done using a for loop. For a for loop, all we need to do is change this while to 4 like this, and then now you see x equals 1. This is the first thing we are doing. Now this x equals 1, we will move it here, you see. So you see that everything you do with a for loop or a while loop, you can do them, you can change them. Then this x plus plus, we move it here, and then we put this one here. Now this is the same equivalence for the while loop we just saw. Okay, so if I save this, sorry, you don't need that at the end. So if I save this now and I come back and I run my code, you see everything will run smoothly, right, like we changed nothing. Okay, so I mean, it's the one you understand, that's what you should use. Okay, conditionals.exe, right? You see it works the same way. So if you understand the while loop pattern, you use that to solve your issues. If you understand the for loops thing, you use that. But I mean, there are two things that they work the same way. You just have the syntax is just, they serve the same purpose. Sorry, the syntax is just what differentiates a for loop from a while loop. If not, whatever you can do with a for loop, you can also do with what? A while loop. Okay, any question? Any question? Okay, in the absence of no questions, I believe we've tried. We started at exactly 5. This is 7:33, and if you don't have any question, call it a day. Thanks so much for joining, right? And probably we'll do this in the future. So I hope you all learned something. Yeah.